Being 6:30, I'm going to call the planning board meeting to order on July 22nd, 2020. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, the governor issued emergency order number 12 that waived the physical location requirement of public officials at a public meeting. Therefore, this meeting will be conducted electronically via a Zoom, either video conference connection or a telephone conference connection, also through Zoom. And those contact numbers were on our posted agenda. First thing I do want to do is take roll of our planning board members. My name is Mardine Badger. I'm the chair of the board. Kathleen DeWolf.
Present.
And Paula Hancock.
Present.
Present. Okay. And we do have a quorum to meet tonight. Our first item on the agenda is we are going to move the minutes to after all of our guests.
Okay.
On those particular items are taken care of. The first item of new business has to do with a public hearing for a boundary line adjustment. It is for tax map lot 021-002-009-015 at 68 Ridge Road. Property owner's name is Wendy Booker. The public hearing notice was posted on July 10th at the town office and at the post office. It was, okay, let me admit one more member. Fran Newton is joining us. She is our alternate select board member person. She has just joined us. The public hearing notice for the boundary line adjustment was also posted on our town website on July 11th. The abutters notices, 5 were mailed out on July 10th. The public advertisement was in the Laconia Daily Sun on July 11th. And all of those postings and notifications were done according to the RSAs and the required procedure for public hearings. The first thing I do need for the case, and it is case number 2020-01. I do need a motion from a member of the board to accept the application as complete.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and I will need a second.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Paula. Roll call vote. Mardine Badger says aye. Kathleen DeWolf.
Aye.
And Paula Hancock.
Aye.
Okay. The application has been accepted as complete. We now will be doing the public hearing. I will open the public hearing at 6:34. And first of all, is there anyone here representing the Bookers?
Wendy Booker and Gary Downing.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Together. Okay. Let me just make a note of that. Okay. Could you just for the public, explain very briefly what our purpose is here?
We're adjusting a lot line. What else? On 68 Ridge Road. So taking a portion of land at the top of Ridge Road and taking that portion and exchanging it for a portion at the bottom, which becomes part of Sipican properties. Community property.
So we're basically just moving it and shifting and keeping the lot the exact same acreage.
Yes. Okay. And just to further explain, a portion that is currently part of the lot will become part of EFAR is green space,
Correct.
and an exact exact square footage piece that has previously been green space will become part of your lot, correct?
Exact. You said it much better than I did.
So it is actually an even swap.
Yes.
Exactly right.
And we do all have a copy of the map. It's a pretty straightforward lot line adjustment. Any questions from anybody?
So you gained at the bottom.
No, gained at the top.
Oh,
Gave
gained
back.
at the, wait a minute, wait a minute. Am I
The bottom of our paper is
Oh, I
actually,
saw your paper.
that's all right.
Yeah.
So the top, okay. So it's from one end to the other.
Correct.
Yes, okay. Okay. Kathleen, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right. So the house is yet to be built.
It's in construction.
So you wanted the more room nearer the Beach Hill Road intersection, so your garage will fit better. And to do that, you gave up some of the property at the top to gain
Yeah.
at the bottom,
Yep.
according to the, looking at the map. Okay.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay.
So that still gives you enough setback from the new lot line?
Yes,
Yes.
there was plenty.
Do you know exactly how much?
It's
What the footage is?
It's more than 20 feet, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just make a note. Okay. Is there anyone here who is an abutter or anyone else we need to hear from?
No butters are there.
Fran, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Paula, any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. As I said, this is a very straightforward, almost simple procedure here.
Don't you love technical ones?
So if there are no other questions from anyone, I will close the hearing at 6:38. And at this point, it's the planning board's forum to either discuss any reasons for approving or not approving, or making a motion to approve or not approve the application.
This has happened up in this development before. There's been some lot line adjustments, and so this isn't anything new that's come in front of the planning board before. And I believe Barry came in front of the planning board a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, and said that he discovered that some of the purchasers wanted to increase their, adjust the lot lines in order to have more property for their building. And I want to know, how do we go forward with doing this? No, this isn't the first time.
I don't see any problems with approving this. Again, as Kathleen said, there have been, I think previously, and we knew there were going to be some adjustments in various lots as things were purchased. So does anyone have any of the board members have any other comments?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay. I will accept a motion to approve the application.
Paula, would you like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second it.
All right. Roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
And Mardine, aye. So 3-0. The application for a lot line adjustment is approved. We will be sending out a written notice of decision indicating the vote and the approval of the application and the lot line adjustment.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And very well done.
I
Thank
hope
you,
all
everybody.
your decisions are that easy.
Oh, so do we.
I knew you'd say that.
We can only wish.
Look forward to meeting you all in person once we move up on the hill.
Okay.
This was Paula Hancock's first meeting as a full member, so I wanted her to make the motion.
Oh,
that was
yay,
very
Paula.
Welcome, Paula.
She
Thank
is
you.
now
Thank you
official.
all.
We look forward to being part of the community.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I'm going to admit Amesbrook Campground. Okay. Our second item on the agenda has to do with the property behind 14 Winter Street. It is a piece of property that does not have a tax map lot number. The property was, in a sense, somewhat discovered in the course of some surveying work by Tony Randall, a surveyor who was with us at the meeting tonight. An adjacent property owner was interested in buying the piece of property from the town. And as part of the process dictated by New Hampshire RSA 41:14-a, the planning board must make a recommendation to the select board regarding, in this case, sale, or in other cases, either purchasing of property by the town. So that is why it is here with the planning board. And on the July 6th, 2020 select board meeting, a motion was made and seconded and passed to initiate the process of selling town-owned land by sending the proposal to the Ashland Planning Board for recommendation. So that is why we are here. Mr. Randall, who is the surveyor, could you give us just a little background briefly on what this situation is?
Okay. What happened was I was doing some survey work for Commerce Properties down off of Winter Street, and through my deed research and survey work, what I did was I found a piece of land that the town had taken for taxes back in, I think it was the early 60s. And the town didn't even realize that when they had their tax maps done up, that this piece of land existed. That's why it doesn't show up on any tax maps. So there it sat in limbo all those years with nobody even knowing it was even there. And with my research and everything that I did, I figured out how all the pieces fit together, and there you go. There's a piece of land down there that the town owns because they took it for taxes. And so they took it from the George Campbell heirs. Of course, George bought up a bunch of pieces of land in that area, which created the parcels that we have today. He had kept himself a piece in the back, and of course he passed away, and then the heirs figured out that it really wasn't all that valuable, so they were just going to let the town take it for taxes. That's what I'm assuming. And so they just didn't pay the taxes. The town ends up getting a tax sale deed to it, and that's how they get title to it. And so my client is just, I approached my client and said, listen, there's a piece of land down here that the town owns. It's got a right-of-way down through your driveway. I think it would be in your best interest to acquire that from the town, and that way it gets rid of the right-of-way that goes down through there, and it would just, you know, put the property back to basically where it originally was at one point in time. And so that's why we're moving forward with this process.
Okay. So the property, as I said, is down behind 14 Winter Street. It is a longish, narrow, somewhat narrow piece of property. It is, what is the size of, it's
0.77 acres, is
7
it?
acres.
Yeah.
So I think we need to decide as a planning board whether we would recommend to the select board to sell the property, or what is the best solution to the existence of that property, and what makes that solution the best solution. Tony, just very briefly, what are the characteristics of that lot that make
It doesn't, I don't think it shows, the plan that I showed you probably doesn't really show the contour. I don't think there's any contours on that plan.
right?
I'm going to tell you that where the boundary line shows between the two pieces is just about on the edge where it drops down very steeply down to, you can see the edge of that old swamp that's down in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, you know, it's not a big valuable piece of land to anybody. Because the town, I don't think there's anything that the town could utilize with it. So it basically drops off steep, goes down into that wet area that you see on the plan that I provided.
Correct.
And I don't know why, you know, my thing was, is I don't understand why George Campbell was saving it, other than maybe George Campbell was throwing his junk down over the banking. Because if you actually went out there, you'd see there's a whole bunch of stuff down over the banking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what the old timers did. They pitched
Yeah.
their stuff down over the banking.
Right, right. And
So
So
it's developed. It's not a
It-
buildable lot. Is it, Tony? In your,
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing he can build down in there.
Yeah.
You know, it just adds area to his property that he has now. You know, it
Gives him a
eliminates
buffer.
it eliminates a boundary line. Yeah, it's like a buffer for his property.
and it is
And it actually you know, keeps, you know, people from going down his existing driveway that accesses his buildings. And, you know, I'm never a big fan of right-of-ways usually, because that's rights other people have on somebody else's property. So my big thing is to basically acquire the land so he can get rid of the right-of-way. The right-of-way goes away once he acquires title to it.
oh, okay.
And my guess is that he's going to, I don't know this yet, but I think what he's going to end up doing is just merging it into the property that he already owns. So
one other important characteristic of this particular piece of land, in addition to the steep drop-off and on the edge of wetland area, is that it is a landlocked piece of property. So other than utilizing a right-of-way, which I believe in one of your notes, Tony, you said the width is not even very well defined.
Right. It's not
It's-
even defined. It's just like one of those ones where, yeah, we can go down the driveway to get there.
It's like a
So-
trail, like a footpath.
Yeah, it could be anything. You know, the determination of how wide it would really be would probably be something that the court would decide when two parties decided to fight about it.
Right.
And
And it also has those monitoring wells on it, which,
it has monitoring wells on it from the Tom Peters, where he took out the fuel tanks, and so it's encumbered with those monitoring wells as well. So
so
Okay.
it is not prime real estate,
it is. That's an understatement.
but it does provide a buffer for the abutting landowners.
Yeah.
Okay, so the RSA says that the proposed sale has to be presented to the planning board and to the Conservation Commission for review and recommendation by those bodies. Now, our Conservation Commission right now is not active. However, Kathleen, you were previously a member of the Conservation Commission. If you were sitting there on the Conservation Commission right now, what would your recommendation be and why?
Well, I haven't seen the property. It is a wetland. It could be deemed a prime wetland, but what that would do would be to make it even, you could do even less on the property.
Right.
Prime means it has a certain status, you can't develop on it, has certain maybe vegetation, um, trees or flowers that of note or things like that. There's not a running stream through it. It doesn't appear. It just drops off into what I imagine that most of us have witnessed in New England. It drops off into a vegetative. It would be probably considered a vegetative wetland. Uh,
Yeah.
Basically, not develop. You couldn't develop it.
Okay.
You would have to have permission. If it was prime, you couldn't develop it. Even for wetland, the amount of fill that would have to be brought in, you would need all sorts of um, contact with DES with permitting. So that would be my take as a former conservation commission member, but I haven't seen it. I'm just speculating what it could be in the way Tony described it. I have seen those properties where back in the day, this is where your household trash was deposited. Out of sight, out of mind, on your property. Nobody,
Right.
that's how they
Well,
did it.
Okay. So, I would, is it our belief that it is, the best use of that property is that it be sold to an abutting property owner?
Yes, that's what,
Okay. And I see the reasons that would justify that would be, one, it is a landlocked piece of property. It does have wetlands on the property. There's a steep drop down from one edge of the property to the wetlands at the other side, and there are monitoring.
question, Tony, how steep? Do you think it meets steep slope ordinances that we have? Is it that steep?
Oh my God. I looked down there. I'm going to tell you, the slopes are so steep that you wouldn't be able to build on them.
But-
That's what you know.
Are you aware, do you know my property where I have that deep ravine?
Yep.
Is it kind of like
Yep.
that?
Oh yeah, it's really steep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually crazy. You can walk down if you go down through the guy's property in a different location. There is an area that's less steep that you can get down there, but it's just so steep. It's crazy. I don't understand why he kept it unless he was just going to throw his junk over the bank. That's the only thing that makes any sense, because there is some stuff down over there, and I think everybody that owned properties on Main Street that abutted this line threw their stuff down over that bank. Because if you go down there, it's like a treasure trove of old
years
bed
gone
springs,
by.
stuff like that, So I don't know. It's very steep, and then when you get down there, it's wet. So
Yeah.
it
Okay.
just it really has no value, really, other than it's helping to hold Ashland together. And basically, that area down in there is a low area of all those properties on Main Street. That's why the water's down in there, because everything drains down
It's
there.
down, yeah.
Okay.
And that's why they put the monitoring wells down there to monitor the for the gas tanks that were taken out.
Okay.
So
Okay. So, I think we're going to need to put this into a motion. And my thoughts right now before we do that is, I would personally recommend that we recommend to the select board that the best use of that piece of land is that it be sold to one of the abutting properties. And the only two abutters that it would make sense for purchasing is either the Commerce Properties lot 17-5-8. The only other extensive abutter is Mill Pond Associates 3-2-9. Now, what I am not sure is whether our recommendation should detail who it's sold to, or just that we would recommend the best use of that property is to be sold to an abutter, to become
Should we
either
say
adjoining,
contiguous butter?
right, a contiguous abutter.
Right.
Yeah,
So if I can just interject a little bit about the Mill Pond Associates thing,
right,
I
yeah,
don't even think it makes sense to convey it to them as an abutter because they can't get across the wet area to get
Wet
over
area.
to where
right,
the land is.
right,
So
okay.
really, when you realistically look at it,
Mhm.
my client is probably the best one because he abuts it on a full length, all across the back.
Yeah. I just don't know whether we can recommend
Who to sell it to? Is that
who
what you're
to select.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it just has to be a recommendation that you say that, yeah, the best use of that property is to sell to an abutter.
Yes. And I would, and for the reasons, and because of the characteristics of that property, first of all, it's landlocked. Second of all, it is partially vegetative wetlands. It has a very steep drop from one side of the property to the other, to the wetland area. And there are monitoring wells from former fuel tanks on the property.
I do think that should be included in the recommendation.
I think the reasons should be part of the recommendations. Does that make sense?
Yes. What do you think, Fran? She's nodding her head.
She's nodding her head. Yeah. Paula, do you have some questions? Any concerns?
No, it sounds good from what I'm hearing. I don't know the land in question, but from what you said, I concur with what your reasoning is.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to? I think we should make a motion, and then we will put this recommendation from the motion into a written communication to the select board.
Okay, so how do we want to, how the motion should be worded? Marty, any thoughts
You were asking about wording.
for the motion? Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I would say that the planning board recommends that the piece of property, and we will identify what that property is,
Be conveyed to the abutter.
would best be that the best use of that property would be to convey it to a contiguous abutter. So the best use of that property would be to convey it, that the town convey it to a contiguous abutter for the following reasons. And then we would list those 4 reasons that we mentioned: the landlocked area, the wetlands, the steep slope down to the wetlands, and the existence of monitoring wells on that property.
So my motion is what Marty just said.
Okay.
Or Martine, you move it and I'll second it.
Okay, I'll make the motion as I just stated.
Thank you.
Second, Kathleen.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
and Mardine, aye. Okay, so the motion passes. So Tony, we will create a memorandum to the select board with our decision.
Okay.
We'll copy you also, Tony.
No, that's fine. if you're looking for some verbiage for description of the property,
Okay,
it was the land formerly of the George Campbell Estate, which
okay,
is known as land off Winter Street.
Okay,
That's what the tax deed says.
okay.
So that would help you define it, I
Off
think,
Winter Street.
in your motion.
Okay. And I may also put in at the rear of tax map lot 17-5-8.
Yep. No, that's good. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think we're all
Okay.
set on that issue.
Great. All right.
Thank you very much, Tony.
thank you,
No,
Tony.
thank you. I appreciate you guys taking care of this stuff for us. It's
Sure.
Well, you presented the information and in a way that we could understand, and
yeah.
you did the hard work, so.
All
Tony,
right.
Tony, the only thing I noticed when I was looking at and this is just a side note, when I was looking at the big version of this plot plan in the town office, where you have Tom and Deborah Peters' property,
Yep.
is that the correct tax map lot number? When I looked it up on our property listing, it did not
let me
correspond to
see.
that.
What's it say on the map? I don't have the map right in front of me, but
Right. Yeah.
on my research notes, I have Tom Peters' property 16-12-3.
I'm not sure that that's it. You might want to double check that.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
I will. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's
Okay.
see.
All right.
And Tony, Fran and I corrected the minutes to reflect it would be a quit claim.
Yeah, a quick claim, yeah.
Yes.
Because the town's not going to give any warranty to anything that they
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
that they
so,
didn't get by warranty. So,
Yeah.
and that helps keep the town from anybody coming back after the town because of the title or whatever.
define it as is.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I think the deed that's going to be drafted up is going to say nothing more than it's going to be the same description as the town took it from. It's just going to be described as, the George Campbell Estate property off of Winter Street. And then what'll end up happening is once he actually gets title to it, we'll probably record a plan at the registry showing it
Okay.
with his deed. So, okay?
Keep us informed of all of that, correct?
Thank you very much, Tony.
Yep. No, thank you. Appreciate your time dealing with this thing. And
Okay.
I'm going to sign off.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Bye.
Okay. And next up, we have, I assume this is Mr. Grossman here from Amesbrook Campground.
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Good evening. You are next on our agenda.
Oh, good.
First of all, welcome to Ashland as the new owners of Amesbrook Campground. And
Thank
I
you.
believe one of our former planning board members, Susan McLeod, spoke to you a little while ago. She is no longer on the planning board, but she is now our land use assistant. So there will be a continuation of knowledge there. What we wanted to do, first of all, is get just a brief overview of what the current status of the campground is and what plans you might have in the future. And the reason is because the planning board does have authority over commercial properties. If you were to do some major changes on that, you would, depending on the types of changes, you may have to come back to the planning board or to the zoning board. But at this point, I think we just want to get a sense of current status, because I don't know that we have ever done much site plan review types of discussions with Amesbrook Campground in the past. So
Okay.
it'd be helpful if you could just give us a quick, just brief overview of what you do have there right now in the campground.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for taking a few minutes tonight and certainly inviting me to participate. It's been a pretty great start to the year, despite just despite COVID and all that was thrown at us in the beginning. But things are running quite smoothly over here, and it's a good season for us. So currently we have 94 sites, and I believe maybe 22, 23 of them are on the Ashland side, and the rest are in New Hampton. And right now, out of that total number of sites, about half of them are seasonal campers who are here from May through the end of September. And the other half of those sites are transient, as we call, right? Weekend and week-long guests for the most part. Initially, as you may or may not know, or as I'm sure most know, of course, that we were just open to in-state, but we've been open to out-of-state folks. And for the first 3 or 4 weeks of that, we were getting signed acknowledgments of home quarantine status, and really trying to keep things low key here. Our common areas most are still not open. Just our store is open. Everybody wears masks. It's mandatory in the stores. And then for those that may have not seen much of the campground, we're quite spread out. So the pool being open, there's been no common gatherings, and we've been pretty specific and strict about that.
Right.
So our bathrooms just opened up. So we just opened up to tenters about a week ago, and the bathrooms are open full time now, being cleaned multiple times a day. And we're at capacity every weekend, actually booked through the end of the year already. So we've booked fast and ferociously this year. I think people are very eager to get out and camp. It's definitely a trending type of thing in tourism right now, and RV sales are skyrocketing. So we're seeing a lot of that on our side. Just a very, very busy, steady stream of families and individuals that are just getting into it, or who are coming RVing for the first time, and it's been interesting. So that being said, we're not really changing much. Despite having some more the ability from a land perspective to expand, that's really not in our immediate plans. Those are big projects, and we want to get our arms around the business over the next couple of years before we really go down any of those roads. So
Okay.
We will probably maintain very similar ratios of seasonals to transients, about 50-50. And like I said, we don't have any immediate plans to expand sites. I did attend a New Hampton board meeting, select board meeting, many months ago, and we had discussed some of the sites that were prior approved in the New Hampton side. But again, those are not on our short-term radar at all. It was about 15 sites were already signed off on, so to speak, that the previous owners never built. But it's, in my mind, as a new owner, those are major projects, and we're not going to take on those endeavors just yet.
Okay, I did notice when I went through our property file, I noticed that back in 2000, there was a planning board hearing in New Hampton for the addition of 50 tent sites on the New Hampton side. So you say not all of those were developed at the time?
Yeah, not all of them were. I think they only did about half of what was approved.
Okay.
And so my question to the New Hampton board was, what kind of process would I go through, and getting approval to do some or all of that work. And that was kind of the nature of that discussion. But and they wanted to participate, but weren't opposed to expansion. And I would keep them in the loop, just like I would. Excuse me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry, folks.
That's all right.
I'm
A question I have, about how many of your sites are equipped with water and sewer, roughly?
91 of them are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we currently have a large sewer easement that covers a big portion of Brunt Avenue, if you're maybe aware, that handles all of the outbound flow to the town. It's something I'm still getting my arms around, but we have an easement with multiple neighbors because that sewer main. So yeah, I was originally told that excuse me one sec.
Sure.
So yeah, our owning that sewer easement, I guess makes it easy for us to maintain and manage the sewer infrastructure in the campground. And I've seen, I actually found a lot of the old plans that were approved by both towns for that sewer expansion plan. So if anyone's ever curious about that, we have some good documentation here.
Okay. Questions, Kathleen, Paula, or Fran?
No, I did not know that there was so much in New Hampton. I have only been to the campsite via snowmobile, so it looks a little different in the winter. So this was all very new information to me, and it's quite the business, and it seems to be a very popular site for many people to recreate on.
Just for information, according to the property card, the Ashland portion of the campground is 3.45 acres. So just under 3.5 acres. The New Hampton portion is over 24 acres.
Wow.
I did not realize either that there was such a difference between the two. Yep. Okay.
Quite the difference.
Okay.
But the only access is through the Ashland entrance. Is that correct?
There is another right of way that I need to double check if it's sort of a back through one of the neighbors. Again, another old agreement around access that is right on the New Hampton line that might actually be in both. It's right at where the bridge, right where the road work that they're doing on the corner, because our property runs to that, right to the town line there. So kind of an interesting one. But yeah, the main access and the 99% of it is through the Ashland side, through Winona Road.
Right.
Okay. Yep. And we also own it as the owners. We bought separate from the campground. We also own 99 Winona across the street.
Yes, we do know that. Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. That was okay.
That is not part of the campground, correct?
Correct. It's not part of the campground.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Just going forward. I thank you for giving us just a quick overview of the campground and having a chance to meet with you, even though it's just virtually. Just
Yep.
Keep in mind, in the future, anytime you've got any questions that you might have about any possible expansion or changes, anytime you've got any questions, you can come to the planning board. We are available at any time for informal consultation, particularly if you want to get some feedback early on in a project, even before you do any formal changes or formal site plan reviews, depending on what you do down the line.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take you up on that and definitely seek out advice, because I know working with both towns will definitely be important in the future. So for sure.
And I'm sure that anytime, if you are meeting, if you have some proposals either for the New Hampton side or for the Ashland side, there is a regional impact process as part of the state planning process and this would probably kick in with any proposals. What would happen if you came to Ashland with a proposal to do some major project, major expansion, for instance, we would then notify New Hampton of that proposal or that application through the regional impact criteria, as they would do vice versa, notifying us, because the land straddling the two sides. Yeah. Okay.
Sure. I'm not sure what substantial means, but I can only imagine, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess any, beyond kind of changing the current use of the business and, or altering or adding,
Yeah.
features to the land, kinds of things. So,
Right.
and like I said, we're just trying to get our arms around this and be new business owners and, get our kids back to school in September, hopefully, and, go from there, right?
Okay, yes.
Thank you all very much for your time. Nice night.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So long.
Have a good rest of the season. Okay. That's done. Okay, and our next item is Mr. Kenny, who has been patiently waiting.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
All right,
very
great.
well. Just to update everybody a little bit, you own your property is at 149 River Street, tax map lot 13-1-2, and it is in the rural residential zone and in the Squam River and Lake overlay zone.
Correct.
And you had some correspondence with Caitlin, who at that time was our land use assistant. She is no longer our land use assistant. She will still be working in the office with some other tasks. Our new land use assistant is Susan McLeod, previously a member of the planning board here. But since she has moved out of town, she is now not on the board itself. But her vast experience and expertise will be great help. So your question was in regards to building a shed on your property.
That's
And
correct.
concern was in regards to location. So could you give us just a quick description of what you wanted to do?
Oh, sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you for taking the time to give me some advice.
Sure.
This is a property that we've owned since 1986. We purchased it at that time from Willard Hiltz. Of course, it was passed on by now. The house needed a lot of things done to it, including expansion. So in 2007, we tore it down and built a new house with more bedrooms. What it didn't have was a basement, which means it needs more storage. And particularly with grandchildren and the paraphernalia that they tend to accumulate, we needed more and more storage space. Part of this was accomplished by putting a small shed up, about 9 years ago on the other side of the property. But we still need more space, and I have plans to put up a prefabricated storage shed of about 180 square feet. So it's 10 by 18. It will essentially match the one on the other side of the property. I have submitted an application for a building permit for the shed, and Patsy Tucker pointed out the issue of the setback from the side lot line. Apparently, and I'm not sure this is a change or not, but in the recent revision of the zoning board requirements, it's a 25-foot setback from the property line. And that will push this way out into my yard, far more than I really wanted to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to need to ask for is a variance, apparently, for that, to put it closer to about 10 feet off of the property line.
Mm-hmm.
My immediate abutter next door is Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Mazzone, who's a very good friend, and he actually suggested this location. Between the two lots, there is a swale which, like between many of the lots on River Street, carries water down occasionally. Right now it's pretty dry from the other side of the street where there's a hill. The that's basically what I'd like to do, and I'm just seeking your advice about how to go about doing that.
Okay, just to clarify, yes, the setbacks in that zone, because both rural residential and Squam overlay, those setbacks have not changed for many, many years.
Right,
And the front setback from the road is 35 feet. Side setbacks are 25 feet, and the rear setback from the water is 50 feet.
right,
So, yes, if that shed were not within the setbacks, if it were, as you say, pushed out, you would not need to go to the zoning board, would not need a variance. You would just do your building permit, which is what you had filed, and then the process from there. But obviously, part of the building permit process questions where the setbacks are on the property and where the construction is going to be, whether it's going to infringe on these setbacks or not. So that's what triggered your first communication from Patsy.
right,
So if you were not to put that shed within the setback, it would be very simple. Building permit process, whatever the fees, the appropriate fees, and the inspection process, and you'd be golden. But because of the setback issue, is if you look at in the zoning ordinance, in the definitions, the definition for building, a building is any structure having a roof and intended for the shelter, housing, or enclosure of persons, animals, or property.
right,
And then and because it's a building, and when you look at the chart with the setbacks, it refers to building, and that's what triggers that need for a variance if you are to put a building within that setback.
right,
So that is that is what the process would be. The zoning board application is available on the website. And there's also the zoning board page on the website that has contact information, email.
Yeah, I've read that. It seemed like, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but there are 3 copies of 23 by 14. They want a detailed plot plan,
Right.
3 copies of that, and there's a various and sundry other things.
Right.
Quite honestly, I mean, I could just agree to put it at 25 feet and say, forget about it, not, just, that's it, and that may be what I'm going to end up doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Rather than going through the process. As you can, I'm not in Ashland, I'm in Massachusetts right now. I'm a property owner, but not a full-time resident, and it's difficult enough, in terms of the timing and everything else to get things set up.
Right.
So if I go ahead and say, okay, 25 feet to 25 feet, that's what we'll do. Well, we'll live with it, I guess. I don't really understand how hard it would be to go to the zoning board. If I go through all that stuff, what the likelihood of getting approved is. That's kind of where I'm going with this too. I mean, none of you can probably tell me that, but it is something that I have to figure out.
Right. Yeah. As obviously the zoning board is a separate board, there are specific criteria that they have to use for evaluating every application for variance, and those criteria and that whole process is prescribed by New Hampshire RSAs.
Right.
So it's not something that they can adjust or skip certain parts. We cannot give advice as to how they may or may not rule. Right. The zoning board has had other cases with sheds in setbacks. How they were ruled, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know there have been other situations similar.
There certainly have been up and down River Street with far more significant houses that have been built with, let's just say, a number of areas where the zoning rules have been violated or have had to be varied to put that.
Well, okay, but also a lot of those properties were what are called pre-existing non-conforming lots, before zoning was put into place. And there are a lot of structures that were on those lots pre-zoning. So that's a lot of what you do see, but there have been a variety of zoning cases at various properties along River Street.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, well, it sounds like the advice is to just sort of make a decision whether I'm gonna go ahead and apply for the variance, and I guess technically I have to put in with the siting that I want, I have to be denied, and then I have to appeal that denial to the zoning board, is that correct?
That's correct.
All
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would just put it in with the 25-foot setback, and you said it should be straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that would, again, just the building permit process. Obviously, part of that building permit process, you're going to, in a rough sketch, show where you're going to put the shed.
right. I've actually done all that. I sent it in to Patsy I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, which is what started all this in the first place.
Yeah.
So she's, they have a copy of that right now, and I sent the fee and everything else. Okay, well, we will we'll
Okay.
ponder it.
Yeah. Fran, Kathleen, Paula, any comments, questions?
Now, it's, oh, Don, I just lost you. Oh, Don. Come on. This is to protect you and your abutter. Things change, people sell properties, and there's been more than a few times that people have bought property and discovered their abutter had a structure or a building that encroached on their property. And so this is to protect the whole, the two people involved that share the common border. And you must be very careful down in that area that you do not encroach on an area that is wet.
I know that.
Yeah, that's another area of concern. So that's what you have to decide. Can you fit this building in, adjust your expectations in order to comply with the 20-foot setback? Or if you can't, then you plead your case to the zoning board and request a waiver.
Right. All right, that would have to all be accomplished by their next meeting, which I think is sometime in August, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's later on this month.
They meet the second Thursday in August.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure I can get all that paperwork together, but we'll see.
Yeah,
And I assume I could do it they're doing these things by Zoom as well?
that's correct. Yes. And if you do go that route through the zoning board page on the website does have a list of the meeting dates and the submission dates for applications. It has the email address for the zoning board email and so on.
Okay.
So that's all there.
And
So I hope we at least just explained what the procedures are and what the rules are. Just
it's pretty much I thought what you're going to say. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't some easier way to do this, which there isn't apparently. So we'll go ahead and we'll see. I
Okay.
have to talk to my wife and we'll make a decision.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So let's see, where are we at? Okay. I
lost you for a minute. It seems like for some reason, planning board, my computer wants to do upgrades. So it diminishes the screen. It's like, okay, no, go away. And I'll get to you later. And I lost everybody for a minute. So I'm all set now.
Okay. Last thing on the agenda is the home occupation application. Caitlin did the revisions of the form, that were needed because of the language that we changed in the zoning ordinance at the last election voting. So the front part, that whole section with all the criteria is all the new language. At the bottom of the first page, we did add the little section that says products made or sold or services provided, to get a little more information, a little more detail from the applicant. The back page, I don't think we changed. Okay, one minor change, fourth line on the back page. It used to say residence square feet, now says residence and accessory building square feet. Again, based on our new language. Really, those were the only changes. So, is there anything else before we even accept this? Is there anything else that you see that we should change?
When I read it through, I think it's under certifications. We agree to allow the code enforcement officer or designee to inspect. But I didn't see anything about allowing Steve Heath for health and safety issues. And the reason why I'm concerned is the code enforcement officer could come through with what he needs to inspect. But I didn't want any applicant saying, well, it's not on the application, so we didn't know, or he can't come, or something like that. So I was just wondering if we needed any reference on that particular issue.
You're right, Paula, because we request comments for life safety in the office use box. Where it says code enforcement officer or his designee, I don't know if that would refer to fire chief.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if they're one and the same.
They're not.
They are.
And I do, now that we talk about this, I do see a disconnect between the certification list and the box at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the box.
Very good, Paula.
Yeah.
And my other question was parking of vehicles. You talk about all the large ones, the tractor trailers and the semis and whatever. I'm thinking in terms of large SUVs or SUVs that have been converted for particular companies or services or whatever, and they take up a fair amount of space.
Right.
I'm thinking of it in case of the space issue.
Yeah. Well, the reason why that one criteria about the outside parking of vehicles, bus combination vehicle, that comes right from an RSA. And the RSA does not, we probably ought to put the RSA reference there.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
That RSA reference does not get into the, like a motor home or a large travel trailer or anything of that type. So I don't know whether adding anything like that. I think that can be part of our discussion with the applicant. As they, when we ask them, okay, describe your home occupation and what impact is it going to have on the neighborhood. That can be part of the discussion. But I don't know that we can limit that specifically with the criteria that we have at this point.
I was just thinking of various home occupations and the number of personal trucks and larger vehicles larger families and for carpooling and stuff, and they're just larger and they just take up more space.
Well, I think
So-
I think for those, I think we can only go by what regulations and so on we already have for parking, whether it's obstructing a
Okay.
roadway or you know,
Mhm.
certain, you know, number of parking spaces per dwelling and so on.
Yeah.
I think there are other ordinances that we can use to deal with that if we need to.
Mhm.
On the issue
It
of,
just seemed like it wasn't there. So
yeah,
you can bring it up in discussion or whatever.
on the issue of code enforcement officer and life safety,
Yeah.
can you put code enforcement officer or his or her, by the way,
Absolutely.
designee with a apostrophe or an S in parentheses, and therefore a designee could be to ensure compliance. I mean, it could be one or more designees. I mean, a code enforcement officer.
If we just make it plural.
If you said code enforcement officer or his or her designee with parentheses S, that would cover all cases, I would think.
Mhm.
My only comment is if any of this is defined by statute,
Mhm.
we probably should note that because some people think we just make this stuff up.
Right,
And this way we say, no, this is state statute.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
but a code enforcement officer could refer a case to the fire department or the police department or the health officer or anything else. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that would cover it if you just, made it a little bit more inclusive to include his or her designee.
Yes, so if the health officer and the fire, so if we had health and life safety, go to the unit, the dwelling at the same time, that would be covered by
It would be covered under code enforcement.
and
Yeah.
Mhm.
designees.
Yeah.
Okay,
We could say,
that's fine.
trying to think of code enforcement officials.
Yeah,
Cool.
officials, that's even
That's
better.
better, yeah.
Put
It's much better.
code enforcement
we
small
go.
letters instead of the capital letter.
Yes, much better.
Yes, 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 good, Marty. Yeah,
That's
yes,
perfect.
that's very, that's inclusive now. Because otherwise it looks like, prove that
Mhm.
are you the code enforcement officer?
Yeah, it gets too cumbersome
It
otherwise.
does. Yeah.
This allows the flexibility.
Yeah, yep.
Mhm. And then down in that box, then maybe say, instead of Ashland Fire Department, put code enforcement and life safety officials.
You mean add them?
No, replace the Ashland Fire Department down in the box with code enforcement officials.
But code enforcement is it can be something other than fire department. It could be structural. So I wouldn't want to eliminate fire department, but
Down on the bottom.
if you put in another line, you can, include code enforcement.
Yeah, it's getting kind of tight down there.
It is getting kind of tight, but code enforcement, like I said, could be a building inspector, a structure that wasn't suitable. So
yeah.
it's different from the fire department.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, let's
Put other?
let's leave the bottom box as it is.
Mhm.
And then just up at the top under the certification, change it to, we agree to allow any code enforcement
Officials.
Yep.
designees to inspect. Yeah.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to approve it with those changes? And then we can start using this.
Boy, after you read these things over and over again, sometimes I can't pick out anything.
Yeah, that's why yeah. So once we get this revised form approved and into play, then we can start using that letter that we created the last meeting to start notifying home occupation sites that we have seen that have not gone through the process. Is what the letter, and because we are not code enforcement.
No,
Planning board is not code enforcement.
No.
Uh,
not our job, the police.
in the end, the select board is code enforcement. If we had a code enforcement officer, a couple of years ago, we had several issues that we needed checked on. So we wrote a memo to the select board listing the items that needed to be checked or enforced. And then the select board forwarded that to the code enforcement officer. Well, we don't, so I think we still need to follow that same process, except now the select board doesn't have that next step to go to. So I think what we would want to do is explain to Charlie that we have this letter that the town, we drafted a letter that the town can use. It's not our letter.
Right.
We drafted it that the town can use it. So someone at code enforcement could send this letter out to a person or small home occupation with the application and the ordinance attached.
Oh, Francis, I guess we should make this a select board item.
So what I think we could do is have Susan explain that process to Charlie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Explain that process to Charlie.
Yeah.
And then between him and the select board, work it that way. We do know of one place that we do want to notify.
Yes, and I was alerted to another, I was questioned, and then I observed it myself today. It's
The one on River Street.
It's on, across from the memorial, from the fret shop. It's been ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So we've got, yes, the, I know which one you mean.
Yeah.
One we've had multiple issues with.
Yes.
And that may even be more than a home occupation issue.
Yes.
That we may have to do a little research on.
It's beginning to look a little unsightly.
Yeah, but we do know definitely there's one on River Street. If there are any others that any of you think of, email them to the planning board email, and Susan will collect those.
Okay.
And then we'll start this process. Yeah.
And there's no fee.
That's right, and it says that in the letter.
And I have repeated that twice in the last.
Yes.
This is just to know that you are identified as a home business, that everything is in place, and there's no fee involved.
So could we make a motion to approve the home occupation application form with the couple changes we noted today?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, Paula. Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
and Mardine, aye. Okay, so I'll make those couple little changes, and then we'll get this moving forward and off our agenda. Okay. The only, at our next meeting, we'll have the update of what we've done so far with the master plan recommendations. I didn't want to do anything with that tonight, with everything else.
Oh, my,
We've had enough.
right here. I got my
Susan-
fingertips.
Susan starts tomorrow morning as our new land use assistant.
Wonderful.
And before we even started the meeting tonight, Eli swore Paula in as a regular member of the planning board. So she is all set. Anybody have anything else?
What about the minutes for 7-1? But we can table those till next time.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna bag out because I don't have a vote anyway, so.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Bye.
Fran.
Sorry,
Fran, good night.
good night.
Bye. I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of Wednesday, July 1st, 2020.
Okay. I'll second that. Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Kathleen,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
and Mardine, aye. Okay,
So
that's done.
fresh. This is all new and exciting for her.
Okay, I think we are all set. Our next meeting is August 5th.
Okay.
As through our same Zoom format. And I think we will be probably doing Zoom format for quite a while to come.
Yes, nobody has gotten any indication that the governor is going to rescind this, at least not for the summer.
Yeah. On the planning board listserv, or the planning listserv, a lot of people were asking, where they were talking about Zoom meetings and allowances for bigger groups and so on. But several people were saying that they anticipate this being the method for meetings for quite a while. My only concern is if the governor rescinds the exemption that allowed us to not have any physical location,
That's become a technical issue.
then we do need a quorum at a physical location.
Okay.
And if that happens, I would still, even for the future, say we should keep Zoom as a second way for people to join the meeting. But if he rescinds his emergency declaration completely, then we would have to go back to have a quorum at a physical location. I hope we don't have to do that for a while, because I'm not ready for that yet. But we will just see how it goes.
I'm kind of getting used to this, and I would think somebody who didn't want to get up and drive from Massachusetts to attend,
Yes.
this was very convenient. And it's all recorded so people can watch it.
Yes.
That's the
Okay.
video.
I am going to adjourn the meeting.
All righty then, I'll second that motion.
All right.